Alright, so I just ran across this video where this guy's saying that solo leveling is setting a new standard for fighting scenes. And like, don't get me wrong, I love solo leveling, but I'm not quite sure like that's the truth, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts after watching this video. So let's look at some of these arguments, right?
I actually believe that this episode of Solo Leveling has entered into the same realm as One Punch Man Season 1. This scene in particular from One Punch Man, Boros versus Saitama. This scene, if you remember this iconic scene, I think everybody will remember just how much work was poured into this. And the color palette, to the frames, to just the way the movement was done, this was in a league of its own for a very long time. And for those that are wondering when this came out in 2015. Basically almost a decade at this point. It's shy of a decade, but let's just chop it up to a decade. And in this moment, history was made. Not just for One Punch Man, but for animation standards in general, or what animation could really do in a weekly format. And ever since then, there has been a lot of series that has tried to reach into the same realm as this in One Punch Man. And one scene in particular, besides today's episode of Solo Leveling that comes to mind, is the scene from JJK Season 2 with Sukuna versus Maharaga. That scene, say whatever you want about JJK, it was an insane scene, okay? It was.
I feel like some of those fighting scenes were just so blurry, like there was so much quote-unquote going on that you couldn't even really tell what was happening, if that makes sense.
General has done the exact same thing with today's episode. And the reason why I'm even willing to say that is because of just the amount of effort that is poured into some of these scenes is legitimately jaw-dropping. Like, this frame alone, instantly, you're not going to tell me you're not reminded of One Punch Man. Like, here, I'll even show the exact scene, by the way. It's That's literally true. Right here. Look at the line work. You see the lines how they're going so fast, they're zipping around the entire environment. Boros is literally about to throw Saitama. The color palette of this legitimately is very similar to, this stuff in the latest episode of, Solo Leveling. And I think that in general, there was probably a lot of inspiration when the animators sat down to make this episode. They took away a lot of, technique.
Honestly, for me, I don't understand why he's so impressed by like some lines zipping around. Like, it's cool to see, but I honestly think that like the good animation, like the stuff that should really captivate you, are either the stopping scenes where you get into a moment, or even the actual movement. Like, those zipping lines are just meant to show how fast they're going. That's not going to take as much animation time, as much time to animate as it would some of the other scenes where you can actually see them flipping around or things like this.
By A1, which is wild, because I personally, as someone that's been on YouTube for way over a decade and has been talking about anime and manga content for way over a decade, I remember a time period to when A1 Pictures was the butt end of a joke of an animation studio. People used to look at A1 Pictures as a studio where you give them an anime just to die. Give them an anime that will just fail upon release. But obviously, over the years, they have changed that perspective, and a lot of people have forgotten about that very bad history from A1, which is an amazing thing. It's an amazing feat to see a company drag themselves out of the mud 6 feet. The feats that is achieved within this. For instance, this is a weekly series, okay? And to see what is being produced in a weekly format anime is next level. This really just sets the bar really high. It does. And
I will say that I have noticed that as well, and I think a lot of us have, where you have, weekly animes that are putting out animation that before, even 5 years ago, would have been attributed more to like movie animes, right? Animes that would come out as a movie. Like, I'm thinking of like Daima, for example. I'm thinking of the most recent 2 arcs of One Piece, for example. Solo Leveling is another one. Castlevania, which I'm going to get into a little bit as well. It's just amazing how far animation and what we can do on a weekly basis has done over the few years. Is crazy. I will say this, one anime that is severely underrated, especially when it comes to its animation and fighting scenes, is freaking Castlevania. The new season, bro. Like, dude, I want to do a separate video just on looking at some of this animation, but if you thought like Solo Leveling's animation was good, I mean, look, let me just show you a clip. Look at this. To Netflix, bro. Like, they went hard on this fight. Like, watch some of this. Look at this. Like, look at that. Like, all those movements, all this that's happening right here. You see this? All that? That's all getting animated in real time. And that's also like the camera angles that get shifted. Like, this is not zipping lines, bro. This is legit people going in, animating all of this. And I don't think it gets enough credit. Like, you can actually see what's happening as they move, and I think like that's impressive. Like, that's real animation right there. Look at this. Oh, you can see, even though it is going fast, you can see what's happening. You can tell what's going on. And I think that for anime, you have to strike a balance, right, between showing that the fight is happening really fast, but at the same time allowing your audience to have a comprehension of what's actually going on. And some of these animes, they go to the extreme, and all you know is that they're moving fast. You don't quite see what's happening. And honestly, I think like Castlevania, the new season that came out, does this fairly well, where it's great animation, there's great fighting scenes. I mean, obviously he's using the web, so all this stuff is just moving around rather quickly, but you can still see what's going on. I don't know. You let me know in the comments. Do you really think that Solo Leveling is changing the game in terms of the animation quality and the fighting scenes? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, I just want to remind you that we must persevere. Peace.